Now, we've looked at a tall posy arrangement before. If this is something that you want to learn how to create, keep watching today's tutorial. Welcome back. What am I doing today? I'm going to do a posy, but rather than it being small and compact, like we've seen me do a few times before, I'm going to do a tall posy. So it's an all-round design, but taller than the usual posy that you see. And I've been requested to do this by somebody through social media. I can't quite remember whether it was Instagram or Facebook or whether I've had an email sent to me. But somebody's asked me to do a higher posy than I normally would do. So that's today's design. If you're studying floristry at college, then this is the design that you would do at level 2. And normally when we're doing a posy, it's sort of round and compact, but it doesn't necessarily suit a tall container. You probably will guess my colour combination for today. I've gone with some pinks. I've also got some dark maroons or burgundy shades as well. And I'm going to start by creating a bit of a formal structure, so a pattern to start with, but then I'm going to soften it with some lighter weight flowers as we get towards the end. Now, I've already attached some floral foam. Now I need to come down at the side to cover this plastic tray. So my foam, to a degree, needs to be a little bit higher than normal because I need to angle the flowers downwards. I'm not coming across this way in a really severe right angle. I'm slightly coming down, not right down so that it meets the side of the container, somewhere in the middle, because it's really important that you hide your mechanics. And this plastic dish is going to be very unsightly if I don't completely cover it. The floral foam has been held in with some floral tape over the top, and I've stuck the plastic container onto the top of my vase using some floral fix, and it's really secure. It's been on there for a little while. I used this container for one of the online lessons. I don't think I've used it on the YouTube channel. I'm not 100% sure. So think about proportions. You can either go the same height as the container, or you can go double the height of the container. That one I think is going to be too tall. So I'll go at least the same height as the container, so roughly about there. And then the sides are going to be shorter. So it's a little bit like a pyramid, I suppose. It's pointy and tall. So cone shaped, posy shaped, but taller in the middle than your standard posy. To start with, I'm going to put in one flower that's going to give me the height. And what I'm going to do is cut it so it's approximately the same size as my container, plus an inch or so to go into the foam. Place that into the center of my foam. Then that gives me the middle of my arrangement. And then everything is going to radiate away from the center. Everything looks like it's coming from the same growing point in the center of my foam. Nothing comes up straight. Nothing comes at a funny angle. It all radiates away from the center. And generally you would do this arrangement in a position where it's going to be seen from all directions. I would say it's too tall for the center of a dining room table because you're going to block the view when people are trying to talk, but it would be great on a coffee table. It would look lovely on a console table where it's raised higher, but it would need to be seen from all directions for you to appreciate it. I'm just going to slightly straighten that up because it was leaning back when I turned the container round. So just turn it round, see whether or not you've got a fairly straight rose in the center. And that doesn't have to be a rose, but it needs to be a small flower. We don't put the large focal flowers here at the top. They come down at the bottom. Now I don't want to go too wide. I'm probably going to come about this half of this height here, but in overall measurements, the width of my design is going to be the same as this. So if I laid this down on the side, let's get that other rose and cut that to about the same size. So if I laid my rose in the middle, across the center of my foam, that's roughly how wide I'm going to go to keep it in proportion with the top and to keep it in proportion with my container. If we go wide like this, it's way too big for the size of the container. So imagine what roughly half of that height would be, and that gives you a rough estimate. You don't have to measure it, you can do it by eye, but for those of you that are beginners, sometimes it helps to have almost like a mathematical equation to work off. And you could cut all these to the same length before you start, and then you're almost guaranteed that you're going to have a circular design. But I'm just going to really slowly work my way round, leaving a little bit of a gap in between each one until I come back to where I started. And the reason that I've left a gap in between is because I have another foliage to go in the middle. If you don't have any more greenery, then just put it closer together so that the tips of the foliage are touching one another. But we're looking for a fairly circular shape with our greenery slightly angled downwards, so it helps to cover that plastic dish. And the foliage I've just used is a Pittosporum. You might not have guessed it. This is Pittosporum Ralphii. It's a florist foliage, but you could probably get that to grow in the garden if you find somebody that supplies it. In a minute, I'll bring some of that up to the height as well, but I'm just going to finish the outside edge. And I've got two different types of greenery. This one is Tamarisk, and it's a very light and airy plant that I use quite often in bridal work. And I'm not going to put this everywhere. I'm just going to put a few little pieces just to bring a different texture and a different colour alongside that Pittosporum. But I don't have a great deal of the Tamarisk, and I want to keep some for the top section because it's quite light and airy. It's not going to be too heavy on this top part here. So there are still lots of gaps in between that foliage. So what I'm going to do next is go round the outside again with the greenery that's come from my garden. So the Ralphii, the Pittosporum, is a florist foliage, or at least it's not from my garden. And then the Tamarisk is from my garden, and so is this lovely purple-edged Hebe. Now I've cut a lot of this off the base of the plant. It needs thinning out, but you can see where the light doesn't get into the bottom sections, and it's looking a bit sad there. So I'm going to have to make sure I remove all those. And because that's nice and tall, I'm going to pop that up towards the middle and then continue around the outside. I haven't done a really severe set pattern. I haven't gone a foliage, another foliage, and then made that repetitive pattern. I've just made sure that it's fairly evenly distributed. If you're a beginner, you might find this harder to do than randomly placing it in, but all I'm trying to do is get a bit of an outline shape. And if we draw a line from the edge up to the top, if I do it on both sides, we've got a triangle shape forming. But because a triangle that I'm drawing here is flat, imagine it as a cone, a three-dimensional cone, and that's the shape that we're aiming to do today. Because I've gone around the outside with my greenery, I now need to bring it to the middle and to the top because we need to link it all together. Imagine that line running up the top, and we're going to start adding some foliage in, making sure that it's all radiating beautifully away from the centre. If you're lucky enough like me to have a turntable, then keep turning it and looking at it from different directions, because that's really going to help you create that good three-dimensional arrangement. Remember that shape is flat, form is three-dimensional, and we're hoping to end up with a design that has three dimension, and that is height, width and depth. Don't forget the depth, it's very important. A few more little wispy pieces, and then we can add in some more of the Pittosporum Ralphii. And if you are new to the channel, or even if you've been here for a little while, then you really need to subscribe. I do say this in every video. There's lots of you that comment in the comment box that aren't subscribed to the channel. It doesn't cost anything, it just helps YouTube to find me and to post these videos out to other people. So like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. If you're in the flower club, make sure that they're following along. And as always, if there's something you want to see, put it in the comment box and I'll eventually get round to doing a video on it. Now the plastic tray isn't completely covered at this stage, but I'm hoping that you get the idea of what I'm trying to create. So it's a tall posy, it's viewed from all around and all the stems are radiating away from a centre point. To create a focal point and a more dominant section, I'm going to add in some larger greenery towards the centre. This one is Skimmia Japonica, and the centre of this has a lovely colour to it. So it's going to help link together with all my flowers. And incidentally, if you are new to floral design and you're not sure about the elements and principles of design, then you need to pop over to my website, because I have some handouts that you can download available to you. And of course, over on Amazon is that ebook that explains all the elements and principles of design. So the Skimmia I've placed in 3 positions to create a really circular design. And this arrangement would be fantastic at Christmas time. You could put a candle in the centre and you're going to have a really lovely floral design. And I've done it as an all-round arrangement. If it wasn't all-round, it would pretty much be a triangle design. So that's the basics. That's the basic bare bones of the arrangement. I don't like to overfill at this stage because I find it hard to get my flowers in if you cover the foam too much. But I like to work with an outline, a clear outline or a focal line in position. But that hopefully gives you a fairly good understanding of what we're trying to create. I don't think I've used these before on the YouTube channel. This one is a Nerine and I've got 3 of them, and I'm thinking these are going to be evenly spaced out, nestled within the greenery so that they are evenly distributed in that circular fashion. Now this is commonly known as a Jersey lily. It grows from a bulb, but you can grow it quite successfully in a UK garden or anything with a similar climate. And that now gives me the start of the focal area, the more dominant section of the arrangement. It currently looks like a design that's been split into 3. I've got a rose, then I've got a band of nerines, and then I've got a band of greenery, and it's not working well together as a design. So now I need to incorporate some of the roses from the top down to the bottom to create that even colour balance and get some rhythm and repetition of my flowers throughout the design. So what I'm going to start by doing first of all is using my roses. I'm going to pick the 3 most open roses to come around on the focal point. And now I want them slightly lower than my nerines, so slightly lower down, repeating that same pattern and shape until I've used up my 3 roses. That one could come slightly lower down. So we've got roses drawing your eye around the middle. That one on the top is a bit sad because he's up there on his little lonesome. So we're going to add another one in to accompany him at the top. And then with the remaining rose, I'm going to bring it on this side so that we start to bring that colour down towards the bottom. Now, if I had more roses, I could do another layer around the base, or that could be a spray carnation or a spray rose. Again, I've still got that 2 sort of sided arrangement now. I've got this bottom half here and this top half, and none of it is mixing together very well. So what I'm going to do next is add in some amazing dianthus. Now these actually came from a mixed bunch from a supermarket. Most of the flowers I've used so far are flowers that have come in from the florist wholesalers. So they're ones that I generally use here in work. This one, and it's lasted so well, has come from one of the local supermarkets. And I've just spread out those 3 little Sweet William all the way round so that the colour again is fairly evenly distributed. I'm going to bring that round a little way That colour is fairly evenly distributed, but it gives me a nice contrast in the flowers that are at the top, but it helps to bring that colour down to the bottom so we don't get that two-sided arrangement. And then to accompany the rose at the top, I can add in some more of the Sweet William. And when you're planning to do floral design, it really is about looking at the flowers that you've got and working out how you can distribute them in the arrangement to evenly mix the colour and the flowers and the different textures together. We don't want to end up all of the same flower is on the left of the arrangement or all of the same flower is on the top. We want to try, if we can, to fairly evenly distribute it out. One of the mistakes that's often made here when people come to do classes with me is they buy one of something and they buy one of something else, and it's really hard to get those single individual flowers to work together in a design. So if you're going circular, think about 3s and 5s. Buy 3s and 5s of the same flower. If you're going square, you can use 4s or 6s or 8s. And if you're doing more contemporary floral design, you might want to group flowers together in 2s or 3s or 5s, or you might even want to use flowers on their own. But it's all about learning how different rules are applied to different floral designs. And because I've removed the main head off the spray, I can now use this at the top of the arrangement. It's a nice long stem and it's going to help draw that colour all the way up to the top of the arrangement. And then I've got one more to go in here. Cut down a bit shorter, leaving that stem if I want to use it higher up or whether I want to use it as separate pieces. And it's looking good at this stage. I've got a nice shape forming. The height works well with the proportion of my container. This is quite a difficult base to arrange into because the neck is so narrow. And then what I'm going to do with this final chrysanthemum is I'm going to cut it down into a few individual pieces that I can use in different places. And then I'm going to keep that final section, that bigger section, to come higher up in the arrangement. And it really is about trying to create an even distribution of your different colours. Think about that pyramid or that cone shape. Think of a traffic cone. That's what this looks like. It's a traffic cone, but a very elegant traffic cone. And visualise in your head the shape that you're trying to create, and hopefully you can understand my strange teaching methods. Now, up until this stage, the design has been quite formal. So I've put a focal point in, I've got some height in the arrangement, and then I've done the width, and I've added in my mixture of flowers. Now what I'm going to do is make it less formal by adding in some lighter weight flowers, ones that I haven't got in matching sets or enough quantity to evenly distribute them throughout the arrangement. I'm going to start with some astilbe, and I've got 4 pieces of astilbe, and 4 generally doesn't work very well in a round arrangement because it tends to make the design look square. So I'm going to use 1 at the height, and then I'm going to use 3 in this base sort of section here to strengthen the shape of the design. Now that one, let me just go here where you can see it more clearly. That one is a bit too long as it is, so I've cut it, and I can use the bottom section as well. 1 at the top leaves me with 3, and then I can more evenly distribute the 3 stems to get a more even colour balance. And then those 2 remaining bottom parts of the stem I can put in towards the base. I've got another piece of the Sweet William, which I'm just going to pop up towards the height. It's, I think, filled up here. I don't think we need a lot more here. It's this area now at the base that I need to concentrate on. And I've got a flower that you might not have thought of using. It's quite a dark colour. This is the seed head from the Phlox. I've probably used Phlox on the channel before, and if I have, I will link it in the cards. This is Phlox without the pink, very bright cerise colour flower on it, or petal on it. But I thought that was a lovely colour combination to go in the design. And what I'm going to do with these is keep them a little bit lower to the base to start with, and then add a little bit more towards the top to get that colour link with the top as well. And this will help cover the foam. It's also going to help strengthen that outline and bring a lovely colour and texture down towards the bottom. Now I've also got this section here. I'm going to cut that down, get rid of some of the greenery because that's a bit heavy. And I'm going to use this more towards the top because it's going to help bring that colour and that texture towards the top. And if you wanted to keep that really formal pattern, you would just keep adding in so that your flowers and your textures were evenly distributed in the arrangement. But I've got some random flowers here that have been left over from previous arrangements. And I'm thinking that by adding them in now is going to fill in a couple of gaps. It's going to soften the arrangement and prevent it looking quite so stiff and formal and very controlled. It's going to give it a more looser effect. So where I've got a gap, I'm going to add in some sedum, and I've only got 2 stems of this. Then I'm going to add in some Astrantia. This is actually from my garden. I can't quite believe that this is still flowering because we've had an awful summer. And this is probably the last bit I'm going to be able to cut. This is way too heavy, it's way too visually heavy to go into the arrangement. So I need to cut this down into a few different parts. Some of it can come up towards the rose in the middle, and then the rest of it I can use to fill in. Now I am guessing that from the camera position, you probably think this design is finished. And you're probably thinking, Sharon, why are you adding more and more flowers into that? But from the position I'm standing, there is still foam visible. So that's why I'm still adding. A couple of bits of extra greenery where I can see some holes. And then I think I'm going to add my final flower. And that final flower is the chocolate cosmos, which you've probably seen quite a lot of recently. This is in my garden. This is another one that's actually flourished this year, despite all the rain that we've had. And I'm going to place this in a less formal pattern, so it's not such a controlled design. It's going to make it look a little softer, a little bit more countrified, and it's going to add a nice lightness to the arrangement. So go back to the very beginning. Think about the style and the shape of arrangement that I wanted to create. I wanted to create a tall posy. I described it as being similar to a pyramid or a traffic cone, and I hope I've achieved that. I absolutely love this design, although I love all the designs that I do. I've just got a few bits of greenery that I'm going to add in. This is also a good lesson on colour and how colour works, because the darker colours, the burgundies, and the dark purples are almost disappearing, they're receding away, and the lighter pinks are the colours and the flowers that are more visible in the arrangement. And that's something that you really do need to consider when you're designing for large buildings, particularly if they are very dark. So don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do so. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. Like and share with as many people as you possibly can, and don't forget to comment in the box below. Thank you as ever for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.